I really would like to know from you is, do you see maybe some trends or some shifts where you say, hey, maybe 10 years ago it was more like this, and now 10 years later it's more like these kind of cases?
If I look back even 5 years ago, B2B e-commerce was just not that big of a deal. Of course, the largest B2B suppliers in the world, the Grangers of the world, et cetera, they all were very early to B2B e-commerce, and they were very successful at it. And a lot of these large brands, they were and are doing billions of dollars a year in B2B revenues through e-commerce. And so I think there was some very standout leaders in the space, and they were the case studies. But there just wasn't that many of them. And even till today, they estimate, data from out of the United States, which is where probably the cleanest data comes from. In excess of 40% of B2B transactions today are manual, meaning they're taken by a human being. Now, that is a staggering statistic. It's absolutely staggering to me that it's 100% manual, that we don't have any automation to that whatsoever. I tell these B2B brands, they come to me and they say, okay, we've never done e-commerce before. We'd love to establish a D2C channel because we think we'll make better margin, for example. If you go from no e-commerce capability at all as a B2B business to all of a sudden wanting to establish a D2C e-commerce channel, and you not only are going to be jumping into a new channel that you have no experience with, but you're going to be jumping into a completely new business model that you have no experience with. And so my advice typically to these B2B businesses, start with a business model that's familiar. Start with, all of the processes that can be effectively converted from your existing analog sales processes to digital equivalents, so that it's I guess it's evolution versus revolution is the way that I would put that. And so that would be my typical advice for most B2B businesses out there. Dip your toes in the water in a business
they see this big dollar signs or say, hey, we can open another channel and so on, but they are missing the opportunity cost, which is most of the time so much larger, but they are not aware of it. That's why I think we are having this podcast to give that information. You can help already the company in so many ways, in automating, in reducing manual work, and having, I think, easier to grab success with indeed business processes that they are already familiar with. Just putting it, next to each other, B2B and B2C. In your opinion, or from your perspective, what are the main differences?
B2B e-commerce, there's a lot in common in the sense that we want to create a seamless buying experience for the customer, right? And so we want to have personalization. We want to have, all of the same types of experiences that someone would get through an Amazon, or someone would get through their favorite D2C brand, or their favorite B2C brand that's a retail aggregator and sells a bunch of stuff on a website. B2B is less mature. And so what needs to happen now is a lot of these technologies, which were completely orientated towards B2C, D2C, now need to refocus or have equivalents built out for the B2B experience. Now, B2B needs to have that same seamless type of customer journey, but it needs to have a whole lot more layered on top of it, in addition to all that base functionality that we take for granted today in the e-commerce world as buyers, as consumers. The B2B buyer of today, the modern B2B customer, expects to be able to have a B2C-like experience, but also have all that additional functionality. They expect to be able to have tiered accounts where you might have a senior buyer, a junior buyer, and then a procurement specialist that signs off on all purchases, right? Whereas in the B2C world, every single customer is their own unique account, right? Whereas inside of an organization that has it's a very large buying organization, they need to have tiered accounts, and they need to be able to have an address book of all of the locations that they might have their orders shipped to, and that needs to be able to be shared organization wide. So there's lots going on in the B2B space that just does that the B2C world just doesn't even have to think about. But conversely, there's a lot of things and a lot of learning that we've got from the B2C, D2C world that I think we should be able to effectively translate into the B2B buying experience, but with all those extra enhancements layered over top of it.
What are the biggest struggles or failures in B2B e-commerce projects, and what tips can you give?
The quality, the depth and breadth or lack thereof of product data. So when I say that, I mean that in the B2B world, often the sales reps, the field sales reps, the BDRs, the BDMs, the SDRs, the AEs, they are having a direct one-to-one relationship with the customer, right? Sometimes they've gone out and they've secured that customer, and then they continue to have a relationship with that customer over a very long period of time. They maybe even bring in special products just for that customer. So that's one of the biggest challenges I help brands deal with when they're starting to think, okay, let's explore these digital channels.
Mm-hmm.
The inconsistency between parent and child relationship of product. So where a product is multivariant, what I'll see sometimes is I'll see in the ERP, because typically with these B2B businesses, they have an ERP and they've got their core product data in the ERP. So they'll have the name of the product, they'll have the SKU of the product. Say the B2B seller has a large catalog of 10,000 plus products. Well, once we go into the digital space and we now have product categorization, they might not even have product categorization in their ERP because it doesn't exist in the ERP. It doesn't need to. But in a digital space, those categories need to exist. That hierarchy needs to exist. And if I go into a category as a B2B buyer and it's got 500 products in the category, well, there's a whole lot of attributes I would like to be able to apply to that product and narrow it down very quickly to the things I'm actually looking for. These are the types of discussions we're having all the time. And a lot of times these businesses don't even realize that's happening. They don't realize that they have all this custom negotiation, these trade prices that have been built up over time that they don't even know what's happening in their business. And they go, well, we didn't even know we were doing that. We didn't even know we were discounting that product by 50% for that customer. We had no idea that was happening.
Yeah. One of the biggest problems we see in B2B space is the adoption of this channel, right? You open this B2B online store and then nothing happens.
One of the ways that I've seen B2B businesses get good traction with customers is to take customers on the journey right from the first discussions internally around introducing this new channel and starting to talk to customers about that really early on. And then maybe selecting a cohort of 5 to 10 customers. Pick some that you think would be really resistant to adopting e-commerce and some that have already asked for e-commerce, and you kind of split it down the middle and you say, okay, we need to be able to bring both cohorts on this journey with us and make sure that we're building something that is totally relevant to them as the customer. And then also helping the sales team understand and helping everybody in the business understand that B2B e-commerce is now also an acquisition channel. So you can, sure, of course, when somebody authenticates, they get their own price list, etc. But now we can actually showcase our catalog. We can perhaps show pricing. Maybe we don't show pricing, but at least we can show our catalog, or at least we can show a subset of our catalog and show what we're capable of selling. You could also even show the highest price that you have across all price lists. And you could kind of have that almost RRP model in the B2C world, but you have your kind of B2B RRP, which is the highest price you would ever charge for a product, and maybe that's the price you show. You could even have the opportunity for someone to create an account through the front end of your website for B2B, but maybe they only have the ability to pay via credit card at checkout and then maybe when they create that account and make that first purchase, then that goes into the CRM for the sales team to then reach out to and build a relationship with and give them a customized price list and customized catalog and put them on a credit account where they have, 90 days to pay or whatever it is. That becomes a lead generation platform and an acquisition platform for the sales team to have more opportunities to acquire new customers.
Do you have a great B2B e-commerce related question that you want to ask our next guest? And we do not know who he or she will be, but you never know. That's always the interesting part. So do you have some interesting question for our next guest?
Absolutely. So what would be the breakdown, roughly, percentage-wise, in your work of B2B customers, merchants, whatever that you come across that would be manufacturers, wholesalers, or distributors? Because they're quite different in their needs. They're quite different in their go-to-market proposition in many respects. And sometimes those merchants would be a combination of those in some respects. Maybe they manufacture some things, but they also distribute another brand's products. So what would be the breakdown between manufacturers, wholesalers, and distributors in the business you work in?